customers are most frequently asking or looking for when they call the call centre, as well as a number of documents around our writing style guide, our brand guidelines, our vision for council. And that just gave them a really great base to start thinking about the future project. Then we kicked into business unit workshops. So we had 13 business unit workshops that were identified by high value, high volume. We will have more business unit workshops as we look to go into release B and ongoing, but we focused on 13 for this release A. So this was the developer and ourselves sitting down with the business units to talk through how they use the website, their kind of goals for the website, their feedback from customers, what would make things better for their process and for their customers, do they have any KPIs related to it, and basically just tell us everything that we could do to help create a better website for you and for your customers. Then we did some competitive benchmarking. So this is basically where we looked at a number of aspirational sites, both in local government and privately, to consider what things about them we liked and didn't like and would maybe want to include in this project. So we looked at Auckland Council, for example. You can see on this slide basically things pulled out that we thought worked really well and not so much. We looked at the City of Sydney and a number of other corporate websites. Liam, do you want to jump in to just briefly cover the benefits mapping?
Yep. So sort of part and parcel of this is we wanted to be really clear around how does this sort of help us meet those organisational objectives and what the benefit of producing a new website is. So some of our sort of key goals that are in everyone's game plans are providing a seamless customer experience, leveraging our people, processes and technology to create operational excellence, and providing world-class stakeholder and community engagement. So we went through a bit of a process, which I won't labour you with, to sort of see how these draw back to even down through to our sort of 5 priorities set in the long-term plan. And we sort of settled on these are the key sort of markers that are going to tell us if we've achieved sort of those strides in user experience. So we looked at when people want to make a transaction, reducing the number of pages they have to go through to do it, and also reducing the time they have to spend on the page figuring out what they need to do, as well as the other side of the coin there is where we want to inform someone or engage someone, making sure that we are able to keep them sort of engaged longer on the site and more interested in what we're doing, so viewing more pages on the website. We also wanted to look at feedback. We get feedback from many sources, especially around the website. So we wanted to quantify that and start to measure that as a success measure, as well as sort of time and costs that we save the business. So through each interaction on the website, that may create a task or 2 tasks for the business, and they may need to go back to the customer because they haven't gotten all the information right. There may be other sort of manual processes in place that we can maybe get around. It's time and costs for staff is not something we have a total sort of baseline for, but it is something we are working to measure some indicators for.
And Liam, can I just question one of your points there, if you don't mind, and that is increased pages per session. The information wants me to read more. Look, we're not selling advertising on this thing. We're not running it commercially. And I'm just wondering if it should be one of our drivers, considering we want people to be able to find their information easily and efficiently and quickly. I would have thought one of the objectives is actually people have to spend less time on the website to find what they want.
Yeah, so we've kind of cracked that into what are the key user objectives. There's obviously stories we want to tell. That's through our tourism piece, through economic development, where we do want people to sort of engage with a more breadth of what we do. And then there are sort of the hard and fast, I just want to know what I want to know and then get out. And we are trying to capture and measure those two specifically. There's a whole paper on each one of these 6 sort of measures, which talks about the very specifics of we're going to measure this measure on these specific areas of the site to make sure that we are just capturing that for the relevant user goals. There's been a lot of discussion because it does seem very counterproductive, but we have put a lot of thought into making sure we are focusing just on the journeys, the user journeys, that it makes sense for.
Yeah, it's always going to be a fine balance, isn't it? I understand. I mean, it'd be easy to keep them all day long and just make it as confusing as you possibly can.
Exactly, and in fact, we've done it. Yeah,
we're doing well. We'll change.
Yeah. So
They're mutually exclusive, Mark. So
Yeah,
there'll be
exactly.
certain pages we're identifying as these are things where customers are trying to get stuff done. We want that to be as simple as possible and spend as little time as possible. There's other things, as Lena said, where we're telling stories or economic development stuff. So we've sort of gone through and sort of tagged each page, whether it's something where we want to engage people more or to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
So those two things are essentially mutually exclusive.
Yeah, so you can do that while you're here, but in an unobtrusive way. Got it. Yeah. Thanks, guys. I'll look forward to the rest of the presentation. Thanks.
Cool. The next stage that we kicked off was user research. So we sat down with 5 members from our community and watched them use the website to complete specific tasks. These were 1-hour interviews, and then we had 27 online surveys that supplemented that. So we got a huge range of data from those and lots of great feedback. I won't read through the next slide, which has some feedback, but in summary, the main insights were that most of the users did not understand our current menu navigation. So that our city, our services, our council, which is where we put all our second nav pages, they didn't understand what would fit under what. They wanted funding eligibility surfaced quickly and more succinctly. They wanted to understand where DCs are spent. They wanted to understand specifics on projects. River alerting came up a number of times. They wanted an engaging experience to learn about parks. And then, another few things around building consents and that. So lots of great information came from that. Then we kicked into our digital brand extension. So we currently have a brand guideline. It consists of our 2 corporate colours with some secondary colours and kind of 1 motif. So we wanted to elaborate on this brand to allow us to have a greater digital presence on this platform, but also on any future systems and current platforms that we have, so that when the customer's coming to a Hamilton City Council website, it looks really consistent with other systems and websites that we're using. So this was basically looking at things like heading sizes, fonts, typography, colours, colour combinations that we could use, different motifs, right down to what a button would look like on a website. And when you hover over that button, what does it then look like? How does it look different? So the user knows that they're selecting the button. What would a pull-out quote look like on a page? What sort of kind of motif elements we could overlay images to make them really clear that this is Hamilton City Council brand. So a lot of detail went into this. It is still currently being developed and will be developed while we build. And then we kicked into the low and medium fidelities. So this is where the low fidelities literally get pencil and paper and start shaping the look and feel of the pages. So we did this with 27 website flows. And I think the next page Liam shows. So on the left here with the pencil is a low fidelity. So we're literally drawing up what the website could look like. Once we kind of nut through that and discuss all that and have changes and edits and different thoughts, we move to the medium fidelity, which is on the right, where you can see it's actually mocked up in a computer program. So this is where you start to really see the new website come to shape. And this is again another example. This would be a major projects page. So in this example, how we would display Peacock as a major project. And what we do with these is we look at the content blocks we're creating. So essentially within a page, there could be a number of content blocks that are then shifted and used on other pages as well. So that gives us a lot of flexibility and creativity when it comes to designing new pages once the website is live. I know that this was of interest a couple of weeks ago, so I thought I would touch more on the Liguema process. So here's an example of what the Liguema page may look like. Right at the top there, we are driving users to search for the Liguema. So potentially what they're asking has already been asked and it's already saved on the website. So that's the first call to action there, is to search for existing Liguemas. Any kind of page where a user is requesting something, we are following a really similar process. Step 1, what do we want them to do before they proceed? E.g. search, maybe the information's already there. Step 2, here's an online form built into that page where you can request what you're looking for. And then step 3, what happens next? You've hit submit. What should you expect as a customer next from council? So that step 1, 2, 3 process will be followed for any kind of pages on the website where they're requesting information. That's when you search for a Legoima. What it's doing is it's using our main council website search, which we're putting a huge amount of development into. So on the next slide, you can see, I'm pretty sure it's search, yeah. So if you were to search on the council website, in this example, we've got sustainability. How the information is displayed is broken down into a number of different types, and you can filter by that. So you could search sustainability, and you could filter by news articles where that's mentioned. You can filter by Legoimas where that's mentioned. You could filter by PDF documents where that's entered. But by default, if you choose not to filter, the results will show where that word is used on pages, so page content within the website. And it's displayed by relevance and by the latest information. The search is really clever in that if you misspell something or if you haven't got the word quite right, it will offer suggestions for you and try and support you to find what you're looking for. So this is a really awesome part of the new website that I think is going to be quite a game changer for us, is having this really kick-ass search and the ability to filter by specific pages, documents, Legoimas, minutes and agendas, that sort of thing.
Nicole,
Yes.
can I ask you something there? I'm so pleased you said kick-ass search. That must be the technical term.
It is.
It is, yes.
I'm a fan of kick-ass search buttons. Hey, I just wondered, I used to look for things on the old website, and the search button was not kick-ass. In fact, I'd Google things and have more luck at finding them. So is this going to be a much more responsive and wide-reaching information base for searching that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So what you'll see soon is the whole website is moving to a search function. So that will be the sole way we're trying to drive customers to use the website. So Liam, if you wanted to talk anything technical search, you feel free to jump in. But in short, yes, it will be miles ahead of our current search on the existing website.
Just wonder if someone types in Legoima, if maybe that's really hard to find, like buried in archives.
No comment.
But this kind of thing. This all
So you raise a really good point there, though, Ryan. Legoima, we all know what it means, but flipping half the country doesn't. And there's a whole lot of other technical terms
90% of the country does.
as well. And so do we have these easy explainers and just like simple plain language as well?
Yeah, so please ignore any of the wording you see on these mock designs. These are done by developers, so content isn't their strong suit. We have 3 content writers supporting us on this project who are writing the entire website from scratch. And so absolutely the goal is that it is understandable by a
huge project.
And that we're really clear.
The
We've
councillors
talked
should
about it
understand.
before, probably about for 20
Not
years.
using technical terms and
Some other features that we are
Do you
sort of
remember
making
with
into the
Kiwi,
searches
the
will also be able
website,
to
the IB,
sort of
the
set
booking engines, the payment
acronyms or
gateways,
or manually configure synonyms, as well as sort of curate the results. So if we know that people are searching for sustainability and we want our climate change action plan to be sort of the first result, because it logically makes sense to do so, we can manually pin that as the top result for sustainability. There's a lot more flexibility in how we can curate, as well as how people can search and find what they're looking for.
Could you just give us another word for synonym, please?
A word that means the same thing.
He's playing with you.
Sorry.
cool. Yeah, that's just going in. You can also search through the filters by date, by location, and by document type. So lots of options there to find exactly what you're looking for. So one of the things things I mentioned that was really prominent in the user research with our customers was the information architecture. So this is the menus essentially, so that our city, our services, our council, no one understood what would fall under each of those menu titles. So we're moving away from that menu-driven approach to a search-driven approach. So you'll see on the home page, the first call to customers is to literally type what they're looking for, rather than trying to navigate as a menu item and getting confused by that. What we are doing though for the menu item is we are making it a lot larger. So the call to action will be to search, but if the user doesn't want to do that, we will have menu options, and we have 12 to choose from. So just making it really clear what would fall under each section of the website. These are draft indicative only. We're working with business unit workshops at the moment to finalise these menu items, but it will be similar to what you see.
Question on that. Will that have pictures, or is that, because like when you look at that, that's actually quite an overwhelming page of 12 things to choose from. I'm just wondering, could it have a front page that simplifies that any further?
So I know it does seem overwhelming, and going from 3 to 12 seems strange, but this is what our customers told us they wanted. They wanted more that were more refined so that they could find things faster. What we are doing is creating icons for each of those menu items, so they'll have a clear icon, not an image. Once you click on that, so if you clicked on cemeteries, then your header would have an image, but the icon is what you see. This example is how it would look on the home page. But bearing in mind, we are driving people to use the search as the first option.
Okay. I think that's sort of a snapshot, so that isn't the whole page. So that's part of a sort of if you imagine kind of a scrolling menu that has kind of the imagery and stuff at the top with the search bar sort of above it. So sort of as you kind of scroll, if you kind of go past the search.
I'm not sure. I think there might be a Liam, can you flip to the next slide? I think maybe we've got the whole. No, we don't.
Back a little bit.
We had that imagery on a previous presentation.
Yeah. I'm happy to flick it to you, Councillor Hamilton, to show you what we mean. Oh, but there you go. That's kind of how. So at the top there is the search bar. How can we help you today with the search bar? And then as you scroll down that home page, you would see the 12 menu items sitting below that. Yeah. So as Sean was saying, it's not its own page. It's part of the home page still. And there's images and graphic overlays around it and that.
Cool. And just a caveat, I know, and no offence to any designers, but I know sometimes there's a science, the art and the science where the designers get so caught up in their design, they lose the functionality. And I guess it's just that balance of keeping it so simple for, 65-year-old woman and a 15-year-old boy, but just, simple, visual.
Yeah.
We tend to overcook things.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And I think that's sort of one of the things that Nicole said earlier, was using sort of data from the site itself to kind of help guide those decisions as well. Because design can be quite individual, and everyone will have sort of different perspectives on what looks good and what's easy. So it's actually trying to use the real-time feedback from people using the site and kind of identifying where they are struggling or going wrong to help sort of refine that as we go as well.
Just on that, that's a really good point. Will you do a bit of a beta test on, like a citizen panel before you go live, and just make sure we've seen it all?
We have allowed a number of weeks for user testing before we go live. We aren't planning to do a huge amount of testing on the actual design because it is so subjective, but we definitely want to test how users use it, and if it's being used to the intent that we've designed it for. That makes sense.
Yeah, and
but just not do you like green or blue, or do you like
Yeah.
this icon or that icon, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Totally becomes an innovating streets. Hey, just with council colleagues, I can't speak for all of them, but would you give us an opportunity to have a to-do with that as well?
With the user testing?
Yeah,
Yeah, totally. Happy to do that.
thanks.
Cool. So a huge part of this project, and perhaps one of the biggest risks, is the content. It's really easy to get a website live, but to write content for thousands of pages is a huge task. So we are bringing on 3 writers who will be working with business units to create and refine the content on their pages. We are starting from scratch, and a lot of the direction and content on each page has already been refined through those business unit workshops and through those customer interviews. So we know what needs to go on each page, but we just need to craft the wording itself. So they're kicking off at the moment and starting to write. So a big thing with this website is we wanted to be really clear that we couldn't do everything, otherwise it would be a 3-4 year project, and by the time we release something, it would be out of date. So what we've done is we've worked within a certain time frame to get a release A out. Don't let that scare you. Release A will be amazing. It's really exciting. It's going to be fantastic. But there will be releases to follow that. I mentioned earlier, we got to 13 business unit workshops. We want to do more. We want to keep improving. We want to keep developing. We don't want to be in the situation we're in now with a platform that is out of date and has been underinvested. So we have agreed on a scope for release A, and then as soon as release A is live, we will kick into development for release B. And we're working through what may be included in that now. So yeah, just what I said, continuing on to the future releases and working with the business more to develop those. As well as the website build, we are working on a number of sub-projects within this, a digital strategy, a domain strategy. So I mentioned earlier, 110 domains we own, a minimum requirements when considering digital applications. So one of the things when we buy products, say in e-services or a building consent portal or something like that, the journey for the customer can be quite broken because they only allow us to change maybe the header colour and put a logo on. So we want to create some minimum requirements when we are purchasing products. They need to be able to do X, Y, and Z so that that look and feel is consistent for the customer and it doesn't feel like they're leaving our website. And we also want to have some really good website governance in place. So at the moment, we have a number of people across council who can access and update the website, and there will continue to be people who can do that. But for the most part, we want to pull that in-house to the comms and engagement team and have them owning those updates. And that just means we can be really consistent with how the pages are looking, that the wording is accurate, that it matches our writing style guide, that it's not full of technical terms and hard for people to understand. So just having a stronger governance process in place. Councillor Bunting, you're on mute.
On mute, there we go. Which is ironic. It looks amazing. Looks really, really cool. I'm just still wondering, back to my original question about the antennas sort of thing, the reach out with this as well as the reach in. I know that, any news site, etc., it can push out notifications. And surely that has got to be a strength to get people here, pushing out not only notifications to cell phones, but to the likes of Glowbox billboards and all that kind of thing. How is this a part of A or B, the active, soliciting people to the website and notifications? Because that would be a massive help, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so what would be required to do that is personalisation. And
right.
So that would be a future state in which you could have an account and be notified based on your individual relationship with council.
Do you see that as part of its function though, or is it not really in your thinking at this point?
So that is sort of planned in our roadmap. So that sort of personalisation and sort of web application functionality to push notifications, that sort of stuff is sort of already captured in release or in our sort of backlog for release B, C. So what we'll do from here is sort of prioritise where we think, how important is it, and how much work is it, and how much funding is available, so that we can sort of, if we want to do that next, we'll do that next.
Well, I'm just kind of thinking, because we are, even though it is a service, etc., it is still a competitive environment in there for eyeballs. And I don't know about you, but I'm a classic for, I'll go in to look for something on council, I'll go, just check Facebook first, or just get something that gets in the way, or something that's been notified to me. And next thing, my time on council website is minor. And just wondering if we're prepared for that, because it's a battle in there for eyeballs.
Yeah, the major issue we have, I think, with the current platform is there's sort of so much work to do just to bring it up to sort of a bare minimum standard, which is what we're trying to achieve within Release A, as well as we really want to start pushing the boat out and do some more ambitious things, and then sort of where Release B and C come in is where we start to bridge that gap and start to make some quite bold and innovative changes, and start to it's a massive service for people when it's instant and fast as well. And I fully understand that you've got to get this absolutely right. It looks like you're doing a beautiful job. And man, there must be a truckload of information. But where it's really useful to me as a resident is when I wasn't expecting to need it. Yeah, there are some other considerations with the e-services platform that's also sort of in flight at the moment. And it's sort of just moving beast at the moment, but we are working across both of them to bring them in line, and that's where we're looking to go.
Okay, cool. All right, no, thank you. I've made the point.
I totally get it. This project is really about building the amazing foundation that we can continue to build on, but in terms of timing and everything, it was important that we just made this quite a refined scope and then moved from there. But at least we know we have that platform that will allow us to grow and personalise and do a number of other things.
Yeah, cool.
Councillor O'Leary?
Yeah, thanks, Nicole, ma'am. Look, just on that, just supporting where Councillor Mark was going with that in the next phase of Release B or whatever you're going to do. Just from a point of public engagement, we consult on a whole massive variety of things, and from a customer's perspective or from a resident's perspective, if I think about my experience on government websites at the moment, I'm trying to keep up with the Infrastructure Commission changes, all DIA, and it's an absolute nightmare. I used to use, was it news feeds? No, RSS. So they seem to be gone by the wayside now. So it's really hard to, for a customer on a website these days, and perhaps it is because, like Mark said, people go onto their social media accounts, but to just, yes, I'm interested in this, or I put in a submission, where can I sign up either for a newsletter or for a news feed or something to continue getting the updates from the website when new information on that subject is released. So is that definitely going to be included?
Yeah, that can easily be included. So as well as the website, we also have a great internal tool that we use called HubSpot, which allows users to have that kind of personalised information approach, and that will integrate with the new website. So where appropriate, we can absolutely do that. We just want to make sure that when we do that the user actually gets something out of that. So it's just a commitment internally that information will get to them through that. But we can absolutely consider that.
And even if it's linked, because I know my entire 15 years on council, I know that elected members, if they connected with particular people, cycling advocates or environment or whatever, when something comes up on an agenda, I know that elected members still will flick a message or an email out to Joe Smith or something saying, hey, it's coming up on the agenda. It'd be great if that kind of thing, once someone was signed up in HubSpot or something, could get that information and get those updates so they can be prepared and they can come to a public forum and all of that really good stuff.
that specific case of being able to sign up for updates around sort of meetings and topics, we have sort of captured through the sort of discovery work we've done, and it is kind of on the roadmap.
Excellent, great, thank you.
Awesome. I think I just have one more slide, which is essentially we just want to have more of a process internally around purchasing new websites or systems to make sure that everything is being considered in terms of our customer experience, in terms of this website, so that we're not kind of making our digital presence even more wider. So yeah, we've just introduced an internal process where Sean and Murray have to approve any new websites or systems, so that we have that continuity. And that is the end of the presentation. Was there any final questions from anyone?
Nicole, I just thought I might make just when we were talking search earlier, it didn't sort of come up in questions, but I know that we'd sort of come up in our discussions previously, just around people searching for things within agendas and things like that. I know that's something that elected members or sort of that side of things is kind of often what people want to do. Can you Liam just sort of touch on how that part of the search works?
Yeah, go for it, Liam.
Yeah, so we're doing two major changes there. So we are going to be pulling out the contents of agendas and making it available on the website rather than needing to view or download the document. But in both sort of that contents as well as the full agenda document will be searchable. So someone comes to the meeting calendar and wants to just search for or wants to find out when climate change is being brought up, they can search climate change and it will come up with all the meetings where it is mentioned in the agenda, and they can sort that by date. They can filter it by if it's coming up at full council or a specific committee, and then sort of once they click into that, it'll take them to that meeting where they can find out how to speak at public forum, add that meeting to their calendar, whether that be Outlook, Google, whatever, so that they can know when the meeting's on, that whole process. And that search is also available sort of through the main website search. So everything is going to be searchable with contents, so people can search for the actual topics they want to engage in.
Yeah, so kick ass.
Basically, yeah, just in summary.
That's definitely kick ass, I like that.
Yeah, a huge amount of development into the search, so yeah.
Cool. Are there any other
did you say when it's going to be released, Nicole?
So we're looking at the first half of next year, probably more towards mid-year. Yeah. So the build is about to kick off, but it is a long build because it's a complete rebuild here. So we don't have a firm date yet. We're just working through that timeline, but I can update you once that is confirmed. I'll just keep putting some updates on exec update.
Perfect.
Just a quick question, if I could, Sean. Could you just remind us of the budget?
Yeah, so I sort of somehow knew you were going to ask that question, Councillor Ewan. We're just finalising the business case at the moment. I don't want to give you kind of the approximate. I don't want to give you the wrong figures now. I think we're due to have the business case early middle of next week. Once I've got that, I'll email the costs or put an exec update or something so that you've got the specifics. Is that okay?
Look, I'm relaxed. I would make the note that clearly we've made the decision to proceed because people are
Writing and lots of work have been done, and one would have assumed part of the business case would have resolved what the cost was before all of that. But look, I'm relaxed. I think clearly you're doing a thoroughly good job and it needs to be done. But from a governance standpoint, it would be nice to see clearly what we're committing in terms of funds. But
absolutely, yeah. So sorry, it's probably just worth clarifying. We broke the project down into a couple of phases. So the phase that we have completed to date has been what we call sort of a discovery phase. So it's all the work that you've seen and the design work up to date.
we're now at the point of making the decision to go ahead with the build phase, which is the next sort of 6 months piece. So we haven't pushed the button on that yet, and that's the piece that we're just getting the final numbers on this week before making the call to push the button.
Cool, Sean. So what have we spent so far on the discovery phase?
I'm going to say, hang on, let me see if I can pull it up.
I will add too that the current platform is end of life, so Datacom's no longer supporting it. We have got them to extend it until next year so that we can get this project done. But regardless of what we build, we need to build something because it's no longer a supported platform.
Nicole, not for a second am I saying we're not going to wanting to do this. And I love your passion and you're protecting it like it's your child, and I admire that. My question is purely from governance. I need to know. It's not a debate whether or not you've done an amazing job, and it isn't a debate about whether we need it or whether I think all the justifications have been made clearly. I just need to know if somebody in the community says, what are you spending? I know the answer, and then I'll defend it passionately. But I just need to know.
Oh, wait, there's more. There's steak knives and...
I'll get these costs distributed to you as soon as I can, Councillor, to all councillors.
Yeah, to all, that would be great. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So yeah, as I said, we'll keep you updated through Exec Update, and Councillor Hamilton, we will work in some time, all elected members, to be a part of that user testing. And if you have anything else that you kind of think about or any light bulb moments or questions, please feel free to reach out to myself. Yeah.
Look, we're all ecstatic here in the chamber. Councillor Gallagher, who's a great IT expert, is dancing in the aisles.
I'm waiting for a question, but it's I'm not sure who does that.
You go, Marty.
Is it you? Or?
No, you go, Marty. Probably the speaker.
No. I mean, the only thing is having a deep love affair with the banks at present, and the degree of consumer friendliness. Nicole, I do a big shout out to you. I think it's you and Sean and the team have done incredible work, and Liam there, and so the whole team. So and obviously you put passion, excitement, professionalism in this, which is wonderful. The thing that I'd sort of say is obviously to Sean, I guess, is making sure that one, it's friendly, but we never ever do away with counter service when needed. Because there is a trend. There is a trend in some organs.
To have that complementary range of ways that people can interact with council. So there's still the counter service. Obviously, there's the phone-based contact centre. We're just trying to make this channel as effective as it possibly can be as well. But certainly, good. Taking that on board now.
And certainly taking a point that will be an evolution of users who obviously will transfer, dare I say it, from the counter to this. When they, I mean, that's a given. But thank you, Nicole, and your team for wonderful work. And you're right, I do have huge IT expertise, and I thank Dave for acknowledging that.
So just want to reinforce again, and I know it's probably a bit annoying to you, Liam, but I just wanted to reinforce again the reach outness of it, because we're building some good channels with the likes of your glow boxes and the likes. So I'd be really keen to talk more about that offline down the track if we get a chance.
Yep, sure.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Marvellous. Okay, so the next item is due to start at 10:30. Are we happy to take, say, a 7-minute break and then sort of just start the reform piece at 10:30?
Sean, I think that's the first time in nearly 20 years that a workshop's ended early. Congratulations.
It's very well managed, just like this project. Right, we'll see you guys in 7 minutes.
Yeah. There's nothing surer in life than, taxes, death, and IT cost overruns.
Oh, yeah, when I first came onto this council, the first big issue
We're back into it.
Yeah, kia ora everyone. I can't see who's in the chamber. It looks like empty seats.
I'm here.
That's important.
Yeah. I'm just sitting just off camera, so yeah.
Really enjoyed your speech, Paula.
Which speech?
The one you were making while you were not on mute.
Oh, to what?
I don't know, to a church or something, I don't know.
Oh, that video. Yeah, that's just been sent.
I was moved to tears.
Were you? You're coming to the prayer breakfast then?
That's tomorrow, is it?
No, next week, isn't it? Next Wednesday or something?
It's on Zoom, it's at Teams or Zoom or something, yeah.
Something there.
Yep.
Yeah, they are. Everybody wants things last minute, Mark. It's just sort of...
Yeah, Wednesday the 1st, there you go. 7 o'clock.
On our response to central government reform. So as we've sort of discussed with councillors previously, this is looking at the suite of reforms and our response to them. Today we're sort of focusing on the future for local government and the resource management pieces. Before we kind of get into the specific content, I just wanted to introduce Justine Kennedy. So Justine, who is sort of waving now, Justine has come on as the program manager for across the sort of the whole reform program. So she's sort of looking at helping us to manage and coordinate across that whole suite. So although we have business leads for each of the waters, future for local government and resource management reforms, Justine is sort of the person kind of corralling us all and helping kind of pull that together. So I'll just sort of give Justine a chance to say hello.
Thank you, Sean. Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Justine Tokuinga. As Sean said, I've joined the Special Projects team recently. Came from Waipa District Council, where I worked for 5 years. And I'm really looking forward to working with you all, and you'll see me around a bit more.
And I should have said Justine sort of wrote the council report last time as well, which I was remiss in not introducing her properly last time, so I apologise publicly for that. Okay, so today we're sort of covering a couple of things. One is around future for local government, and one is resource management. Julie's going to lead us through the future for local government piece, and there are some particular questions that she wants to work through. What we're trying to get out of today is helping to identify the outcomes that we want for Hamilton, for Hamiltonians, before we kind of get into some of the specifics. So this is kind of where we talked previously about that sort of top-down view of actually trying to be clear on what we want from central government, and then helping use that to inform some of the specific points that we're making to them on the different reforms. So Julie, probably if I share my screen, and if you're happy with that, and then you can sort of direct me so as we go through. The second piece, Leah is going to be talking to the resource management piece. So I will share my screen and then I'll hand over to Julie to kick into the future flow of government piece.
Thanks, Sean. Marina, Mayor Southgate and councillors. So we will just move through a couple of these introduction slides and talk about the future for local government. So next slide, please, Sean. So really, as you know already, the review panel has done their initial thinking and have put out 5 questions that they want to ask for submissions about, and we have until the 22nd of April to put in a submission to those 5 questions. We are going to try and organise to make sure that council at least has one, preferably more than one, but must be one opportunity to have a face-to-face conversation with that panel. So we're working on that at the moment. What happens after the panel have finished, they do their draft report and give their recommendations to the Minister, and then it'll become a public submission process from October 22 through to early 23. And again, we will have the opportunity to influence at that point. Next slide, thanks, Sean. So just a recap of the 5 questions. And I'm not going to go through them. What we really want to do today, we have limited time today, but really I wanted to take the first opportunity to have some conversations with you about some of your views about what these questions mean to you. Maybe the next slide, please, Sean. And so we're going to do some work to pull some background information together for you, and so that when we come together again, most probably in the new year now, is that you'll have a robust amount of information to think about what these 5 questions are and what your response would be. But I thought it'd be really interesting just to get some initial responses from you. And because we've got limited time today, I'm going to challenge you and ask you, we'll put the question up and then we'll get you to actually just jot your answers to that into the chat function. And so everyone can see what you're saying. We'll have most of about 2 minutes for each question, and then I'll collate those and share those back. If there's anything there that you want to be more, give me more information about, I'm happy to take that by email and stuff as well. So, the first question. So, this question is about, the review panel talks about local governance, not local government. So, what is the key point that you'd want to make about local governance? I'm going to give you 2 minutes and just have a think about that and drop your answers in the chat.
Can you, I've been here for 20 years and in government, can you actually ask me in terms of the weight of this, what we mean by quick fire questions?
We're not all on Zoom.
So what I mean is that, we have limited time today, so, usually what we do is we have a more robust opportunity for you all to share with you and talk about the questions. We don't have that opportunity in terms of time today.
Okay.
We're not all on Zoom, Julie.
I've let the members.
Should we just email our answers to it?
No, I mean,
So Julie, those members
give me some sticky notes.
On separate devices, so they can't just write comments into the chat. Is what,
There's 4 of us here, Julie.
Oh, my apologies. I thought we were all on
Can
Zoom,
you send down some sticky notes?
Apologies.
And a copy of the Groundhog Day movie.
Go around and give me, just if anyone would like to share, if there's anything that they would like to, does the local governance, not local government, is there anything in that you'd like, that you think is critical that we should be thinking about? Would you like to lead, Councillor Martin? Okay, so just to clarify, the review panel talks in their questions about, Sean, can you go back a slide, please? 2 slides? So the first question asks, how should the systems of local governance be reshaped so it can adapt to future challenges and enable communities to thrive? And they specifically in their document talk about local governance rather than local government. And so I was really interested if the elected members have a view about what local governance means to you.
So I can see Mayor Paula has her hand up. Julie?
Oh, thank you, Sean. I can't see that, so that's great. Mayor Paula, would you like to share your thoughts?
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. In respect to this, when we talk about local governance rather than local government, I think we lose people's, the community's understanding of what we're talking about, because local governance is an action, and government is a noun. Right, just to simplify it. So governance is something that you do locally to shape your city, but the system is a system of local government, which the public understand means councils across the country. They are our local government. So if we're talking about local governance, we've got to be clear about, are we just talking about the role of the elected members as governors, and how does that sit with the wider engagement of the community in shaping local government decisions? They're not governors, they're the wider community, the public. I'm really interested that as much as things are top down, they are bottom up, and that the community get an interface before the decisions are made by the governing body, the councillors, so they can shape their city. So it's not actually just about the elected members shaping the future challenges, it's around how we capture the community, that local voice, that local placemaking, the local voice, the local nuances and differences. And I've talked about this with my colleagues at every level of local government across the country, metros, rural, provincial. It really is horses for courses. A small provincial town will have a completely different need of their local government than a massive thriving metro like ourselves, or Auckland, which is bigger. So things are going to be translated into different mechanisms. So I don't think there's clarity. And if you went out to the general public and said, what do you think local governance means? They wouldn't know. They wouldn't know what that meant. So, but they know what councils are, because they interface with their life every day. So just put that for the first one.
Thanks, Mayor Paula. That's really helpful, because I think that feedback about that lack of a definition or lack of clarity is really important. Has anyone else got anything they'd like to add?
Yeah, I'll have a crack, and it's probably not a widely held view in our group, but I think our role is, I think Paula raised a very good point about being bottom up. We're upward managers as opposed to downward managers, and I think a lot of the tension that's arisen lately has simply been the expectation that we are here as an arm of central government, as opposed to being an arm of the community that is represented. I don't know if I'm articulating that well, but I think a big part of our role is to take the needs and wants and desires of our individual as communities, as Paula said, horses for courses. So government and those kind of powers get those very clear messages and desires from the community, where we are go between upwards as more so than downwards. That's one of our functions, but I also think the other functions of local infrastructure, where the buck stops as well. Does that make, I haven't articulated that very well, but I think we are upward managers from the community, I would suggest. Whereas, I think, like I said, the tension is there seems to be an expectation that we are downward managers as an arm of government. And with that in mind, I think, our time is limited if that's the attitude that's carried on.
Thank you.
It's just my view anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Mark. That's really helpful. One more on this one, if anyone wants to contribute, otherwise we'll move on to the next question.
Well, I want to contribute because I don't really like this process. I'm not the only one in this room. To me, what we've got, these questions, the way it's being handled, I'm sorry, it's little theoretical or academic exercise. When I saw this item on the agenda, I thought, okay, great, someone's going to fill us in on where they're heading to with this review panel, and we're going to be, here's the points they're considering or the directions they're heading. What do you think about these points? Not sort of, I feel like I'm in a university first year seminar or something. I didn't come along really for a theoretical exercise, I'm sorry.
Can I suggest that because each of these sort of questions that the review panel is asking as part of their consultation require quite a bit of discussion each and a reasonable amount of in-depth discussion. We clearly haven't got time to kind of have those meaningful discussions about each one now. I think it probably is worth saying that we are planning a series of sort of discussions with elected members on each of these, so we can have that more meaningful discussion. Councillor Dave, I think it's probably in the time we've got here today, it's really just it's probably a bit of a once over lightly, because I'm hearing what you're saying, and I understand it's not that easy to manage with a sort of this hybrid situation.
Well, it's not just the hybrids, that we have no idea really what the context is.
Is this open or closed?
Where is this review panel heading? If we knew where they were heading, what they're angling for, then we could pass some useful, practical comments.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with Dave there actually, because I'm shooting from the hip with these answers, wondering what the heck they're going to end up, and are we committing to something by saying them? So, well, I don't retract what I said, but I'm sort of scrabbling around trying to find an answer.
But maybe if I can just clarify, the review panel have posted these 5 questions, so they produced their initial document and they have put in the initial document, these 5 questions are the ones that they want people's views on. So these are the 5 questions that we have to answer or address in our submission. So the first question is, how does the system, how should that system of local governance be reshaped? So it can adapt to future challenges and enable communities to thrive. That's a really big question, and so maybe just we focus on this question today. I think, Sean, how much longer do we have?
Do they see I'm asking?
No, they can't see us.
Can I? Do we press a button? What do we do to?
We can hear you, mate.
Right. Well, thank you. I fully endorse Councillor McPherson's concerns. I mean no disrespect to staff. What I want to avoid is you are talking to some very experienced people in government, local and national, and it's a suck eggs time. In view of the excellent presentation that Ryan Hamilton gave the other day in terms of the amendments to the Resource Management Act, there may be a healthy dose of cynicism from some of us in terms of these questions. I'm not sure where these questions are actually leading, quite frankly, and they seem, to be honest, somewhat shallow.
Yeah, so these are the questions that the review, the central government, the panel themselves have asked. So I think perhaps what I'm hearing is that we should put some more context around these things to help sort of shape them, and so that the next discussion we have is perhaps not quite so open-ended as in what are your initial thoughts on the answers to these questions, but perhaps if we sort of shape up what we understood from what we've heard from council views to date on through the various discussions that we've had, and then bring something back in a sort of with a bit more detail. Is that?
Well, look, I'm but one view, and I'm totally respecting there'll be other colleagues that may want to, with enthusiasm and open heart and open mind, engage in this particular process. But anyway, sorry.
I guess, I mean, I'm happy to try to give you my feedback on the first question, and I'm doing it the way it's posed. I agree with Councillor Dave. It is an academic question. And so my academic answer would be that the critical component of local governance is a robust local government So that is a democratically elected, community-facing, free and frank elections, right? So because if you look at the subsequent questions, 3 particularly, they are trying to suggest a nuanced change away from the traditional model of local government versus local governance. I mean, local governance could be as down to the smaller aspects of community boards, and so I think the clear first message back to the review panel is we believe is a key pillar of local governance is a robust, freely democratically elected local government. How's that for my response?
Thank you, and I'll go and put some sugar in my coffee. Thank you. I'll get some sugar. I'm obviously needing sugar.
Sure, not Julie. Sorry, thanks. I'm just driving to physio, so I am hands-free and I can't put up my electronic hand. I 100,000 million% agree with what Ewan just said, and I just wanted to clarify before I make comments. So this is the local government, because I'm a little bit confused about the item today. I along with Dave, thought we were getting an update on all the reforms, but that aside, is this panel reviewing local government? Are they asking for a formal submission or feedback? And by what due date?
So they're asking, so they'll put out in a discussion document which lays out these 5 questions. So these are not our questions, these are the questions from this review panel. And they are asking for a formal submission to these 5 questions by April 22.
Okay, all right, so we've got time. Yeah, as I said, 1,000,000 billion times support what Ewan just said. My worry is that yet again we're slipping down this rabbit hole and trying to answer a question that perhaps the question we don't even agree with, and that's why I think Ewan's just absolutely hit the nail on the head. And also agree with what Mark said in terms of the bottom up. We have to put forward the very best position, irrespective of what gobbledygook that they're going to throw at us. We lost in the detail like I believe we did in the water reform, and put the very best position that represents the people that we represent, and that's why I think Ewan's position is just bang on, quite frankly. But I guess, Judy, you're saying we've got lots of time for this discussion, but my fear is we get bogged down with their level of detail rather than putting our position strongly. And
Yeah, thank you, Angela. And that's the reason why I want to start the conversation, so that we have some time to put some information together for elected members that represents your position. So, as Sean said, we'll come back and there'll be some more lengthy sessions in the new year where we can actually put a bit of some information forward for you that might be helpful in developing your response. But we can do that in the new year.
Sarah, Paula and Ryan have each got their hands up. Maybe if we just kind of cover those points and then we perhaps move on to Blair's update on the RMA reform specifically. Is that okay?
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay, so Sarah?
Thank you. Julie, so I found the questions possibly a bit hard also to kind of as a starting point because they're so abstract in many ways. But what I would find really helpful is to understand what local government looks like in other parts of the world. So, we have very set of responsibilities, but if water's being taken from local government, then what else could we be doing that actually would do better, or that we could work with the community on in a way that's much more effective than central government? And going to Mark's point, that bottom-up approach, we've seen many instances where community organisations or iwi, whoever it might be, can deliver on something much better than a large government agency or DHB. So I'm really keen to be able to actually look at tangible things that we could say, actually, local government could do this better. So it might be moving more into the working closely with community houses and that social space, more around things, community education opportunities, all sorts of things, getting people, programs assisting people into work. So there's a whole heap of things that maybe we could take on, but I find it hard to just kind of pull them out of thin air.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's really useful though. And we are doing some background research looking at some of those other models, along with others that are in other places of the world. Particularly, I think that thing about thinking about how to expand council's role rather than retract council's role. Yes. I think that's really important.
Absolutely, and I'm thinking like, the 20-minute city concept, how could we use this reform to actually strengthen that so that we have more influence in terms of where schools are located, where early childhood centres are located, where, these things at the moment which are very disjoint and have an impact on I guess, I don't like the word placemaking, but how our neighbourhoods kind of built and developed. So yeah, very keen to look at how we expand that.
Thank you.
Paula, is your hand up from the last time? Or okay, so.
Go to Ryan first, and then I'll just make a few comments from what I've heard at local government, if you like.
Sure.
That'd be really helpful.
Right.
Just for number 4, what needs to change so local government and its leaders can best reflect and respond? Slightly cynical, but for the government to not make decisions without any engagement with council, that would be probably a start. To have genuine, meaningful engagement and not token politicians, to break down the disconnect, to have MPs actually turn up at council meetings. That'll do for now.
That's current MPs, right? Not past one.
Yeah, that'll be enough.
Paula?
Thank you. Just in terms of this, I've been to a number of workshops at the LGNZ level. Ewan and I attended the roadshow one in Okaupo. I think the interesting thing is they're trying to, unlike another reform that more recently happened, they're trying to go back to first principles at least. And I guess these questions are quite lofty because what they're trying to do, rightly or wrongly, is to get some broad principles about what good local government looks like and build off those principles. So they do expect a broad range of views because we're talking about everything from big metros right through to small rural town, and as I said in the earlier conversation, quite different. But they are planning another roadshow, aren't they, Julie, early in the new year? These kind of things do frustrate me in this form because you really need to be in the same room strategically thinking these things through and having a broader conversation. Like we did with the long-term plan when we were at the veranda, when we had things to hand to really underpin the answers. So coming at Martin would have not liked that workshop because I'm pretty sure post-it notes or something to that effect made an appearance. But it was really good to be in the room with a whole lot of leaders from other parts of the country and think about what does it mean to you, what does it mean to you. To expect every single elected member around the country to have these questions fall on them is difficult because it's a matter of context. In what context? Ryan interpreted before in a context, and he's not wrong. I could interpret for one and say the best thing what needs to change is the government needs to give us funding so we can put infrastructure in place and give effect to the community's aspirations in the long-term plan. So, there's a lot of scope and width in these, but I think it would be good for us as a council at some stage quite soon to get together and think about if we were going to be the best council that we could be, forget about the rest of New Zealand for the moment, what would that look like? Are we there, or could it change? And if it could change, what would it change to look like? I just put those thoughts down there. And we are playing in the helicopter zone at the moment. We're not getting to the nitty gritty, but that's the way that this whole roadshow has been structured.
Thank you, Michael. I think that's a really good suggestion. I'd like to, when we come back in the new year, make sure we have that opportunity for elected members to get together and have that type of discussion. It would be really useful.
Well, and we'll work out kind of the best format for that, whether it's sort of, and we'll figure that out. So, and kind of talk to some of the elected members offline to make sure we've got something that works for all. Okay, I'm going to move on to RMA piece, and Blair and or Hannah are just going to talk to this piece.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. If it's okay, I'll start off and then I'll kick over to Blair just with a few additional comments. So in addition to obviously the waters reform and the future for local government work that's underway, what we've got travelling along at the same time is the resource management reform. You'll be aware that Council's made a submission on the MBA, which is one of the pieces of legislation to replace the RMA. So just quickly, the Select Committee's released their report on that now and recommended to Government that they actually pursue that. So we're, with a few minor amendments, we're looking at submitting on that again in the first quarter of next year alongside the first draft of the SPA as well. What I really wanted to do was provide a little bit of an overview about how we're going to influence in this space going forward. What's probably important to note is that there's been a local government steering group established over the last month. So that's 12 local government elected members and senior council executives that have been pulled together. The sole purpose of that group is to build on the relationship between central and local government and really look at how local government can advise central government in that space. So that's quite a positive move. A number of people on that group HCC has close relationships with. So you've got Toby Adams from Hodaki, Bill Cashmore, which is Deputy Mayor of Auckland, Mike Teelan from Queenstown Lakes, and Megan Tyler from Auckland Council. So people that are experiencing similar Tier 1 issues, and we've got quite good and ongoing relationships with. So we'll be looking to make sure we stay closely involved with them as this progresses. On another note, both Blair and I have been working closely directly with the Ministry for the Environment as they developed the SPA, the Strategic Planning Act in particular. So that's providing kind of local technical advice and sharing some of our experience that we've had as we've developed the Metro Spatial Plan and through our future-proof partnership about how that's worked, how that might play out in the new legislation, and specifically the importance of acknowledging the metro areas or the Tier 1 areas separately from wider regional planning. Just the unique issues that we kind of deal with and how those need to be specifically recognised in new legislation. And I guess going forward, some of the other key areas that we're looking to really influence in is the governance arrangements for growth planning going forward, and that's spatial planning. Who makes decisions on that, how we maintain local placemaking in the new proposed planning, that local versus sub-regional versus regional voice, what's the appropriate split for that going forward. Really key as well, implementation. What's the role of our staff and local government moving forward in this space? If things play out that it moves to a regional level or a new committee, how do we maintain decision making and kind of autonomy where it's appropriate? And really resourcing as well. These are huge changes that are presenting in the resource management space. And you'll be aware we've just dealt with the amendment to the current system and how much time and effort went into looking at one small piece of the current system. This is looking at changing everything. So it's about putting our effort where it's best going to make some changes. So yeah, going forward, as part of these conversations, a lot of the messages that Julie and Sean are getting for the future for local government are entirely relevant to wrap into the resource management conversations as well. So yeah, was there anything else, Blair, that you wanted to add in?
Thanks, Hannah. That was a great summary. So really just really an important aspect is the relationships that you as elected members have with your colleagues and some of the opportunities that we can create for you to influence at that national level. So Mayor Paula this week has written to a number of ministers and MPs in terms of the RMA bill, and that's actually had some quite effective cut through in terms of getting some voice in Wellington, and actually the Select Committee Chair reaching back out to Mayor Paula following our submission this week. The relationship we have with Mayor Toby Adams will be critically important, that he is the co-chair of this steering group for the government. But equally important is going to be the relationships that we provide you to the local MPs and how you can influence both sides of the House. And I think it's important we don't just look at our Labor MPs, but also the National and ACT MPs, so that there's a good understanding of the Hamilton perspective here. So as Hannah has touched on, there's probably a few things that I just want to reinforce. Local placemaking, the voice of Hamilton as a Tier 1 authority here has never been more important. The changes to RM reform are all about taking everything to a regional approach. So our voice has got to be very strong around achieving sub-regional and local voice in that context. So through our experience of Future-Proof, Hamilton Urban Growth Strategy, Metro Spatial Plan, and the Waikato Plan, we know that Hamilton and the Future-Proof area is very different to the rest of the Waikato. So we've got to make sure that those nuances come through, and never more than evidenced in the RMA submission that Councillor Ryan led on Monday, where we made those points very strongly. The other part for me is the implementation side of this, both in terms of the government being able to effectively resource this whole new approach to RMA reform. If they are genuinely serious about regional spatial strategies and regional committees, how are they going to resource that? And we know that they struggle to resource Future-Proof and Smart Growth in the Bay of Plenty. So how are they going to do that across 14 of these in the country? Equally, how do we ensure that all of government comes to the table when we're talking about regional spatial strategies and natural and built environment plans? It's no good just having a little part of government. We need an all of government aligned approach to this, so that when we're thinking about the future of our city and our area, it's not just through the lens of one or two government agencies, it's bringing the power of all of government. And for me, the other element to this is how do we get long-term implementation outcomes and agreements? So we're tackling some big issues here to try and shape the future of our community. This reform of RM is going to fundamentally shape and change how that occurs. But how do we implement that together through our investment and the investment of government and the community and our key partners together? So there's a number of elements here, and I know that Councillor Dave, Mayor Paula through Future-Proof, Councillor Martin through Waikato Plan, and Mayor Paula just through the Mayoral Forum, you've seen how these regional approaches can work, but also the challenges of those. So I think Hamilton's got a really, really strong role here through our practical experience to bring those to the table and to really have a strong voice in this period of the next 12 months. So I'll just stop there and happy to take any questions or comments. Paula.
Not so much of a question because I'm across all of that, but just want to say that I've had feedback from multiple parties about how what a great job you did at the Board of Inquiry Committee on Monday. So Ryan and team did a very good job, and it was highly thought after, and I had a couple of consequential conversations, so it did get some cut through. So thank you for your work on that.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, Councillor Dave, are you still in the chamber? I think practically, Councillor Dave, you've seen how Future-Proof has worked over time and how much relationships go into these being effective. I guess you'll practically understand exactly what I'm saying around how this governance representation, but equally mandate works in a practical sense. And this is, I think, where our practical influence is important back to government officials here. Because you've seen the good and the bad.
Yeah, I think more of the latter.
But I think what that shows us, Councillor Dave, is that you've got to resource this, and you've got to work on it, and you've got to focus on it, and you can't just create these plans and then leave them be. It's got to be something that's constantly given focus to, and there's a lot of resource, both in terms of our organisation, but equally these regional committees, whatever shape or form they are, to actually prepare these plans. They are not just a prepare it and put on the shelf. They are a living, enduring document. And so it's going to be so important for us to make sure that that model, with a sub-regional and a local lens, is delivered. I think we've seen through the RMA bill in the last few weeks a very prescriptive, one-size-fits-all approach from central government doesn't pick up or nuance the local circumstances. And I think as a Tier 1, we are very different to the rest of the Waikato, which is a massive area. So Sean, I'm taking that no questions or comments.
Yeah, so that's right. We're sort of due to finish this at 11:15 anyway, so I think that's probably a good place to finish it.
Sorry,
I do just want to acknowledge that.
Sorry, Councillor Gallagher does have a question.
Oh, sorry.
I'm wanting to get I've asked that I get a big yellow hand at a poll and I can show me the camera. That's a very good presentation. Ewan has just given me some sugar. And the two things I've got to tell you that will set me off is don't use the word quick fire questions on complex issues and yellow sticky notes. And I'm saying that with great respect and friendliness in terms of the previous presentation. And I just want to add my voice to Paula to say how, and I didn't manage to see it in person, but I've had lots of good feedback saying how proud I am that our good colleague Ryan and the staff team presented with the future-proof councils in Tainui. So it seems to me in terms of strategy moving ahead, and certainly got the Waikato plan, I was at the other day, feedback, future-proof Waikato plan, as that we very much in our interaction with the government moving forward, the more we can do in the lens of that future-proof councils is really good. And I just want to say that I think we are genuinely blessed with a heap of intellectual capacity in our staff team, and I thank you for that. But big shout out to Ryan. I don't know, I think Paul is still awarding the Chocolate Fish Award. I don't know how that works, but definitely, Paula, I will nominate formally Ryan for the Chocolate Fish Award.
Yeah, it's coffee voucher, and yeah, Ryan, next time you're in town, coffee.
Don't thank me yet. Let's see if we get the result. But thank you.
I mentioned that I was talking to Minister Sage this morning on a number of matters. She called me, and she did mention how well the presentation's gone, and that you put yourself in a very good position for the conversation. So I think they're getting their papers tonight and discussing it over tomorrow. So this moves so fast, and that's the key issue, I would say, as councillors, with some of this reform stuff. I know we don't want to be pushed into, squeezed through a syringe kind of thing. We don't want to be like that way. But if we don't get in and shape the thinking in any level whatsoever, it'll be shaped by other people, and we'll be then in a situation responding to it. So I'm in the camp that let's give them as much feedback and more. Even answer questions they haven't asked us yet is preferable to saying nothing and then being annoyed when it doesn't come out the way we thought it might look. So thanks again for the team for that work. And thanks, Martin. Lots of good coffee shops open now, by the way.
Great, so I think we'll leave that reform piece there. I understand there's a drop-in session now to follow on Hamilton City dwelling projections. So I'll sign out and I will leave that drop-in session to carry on. Thank you all for your contributions.